The day before Halloween, a co-worker asked me for a favour. I work as a deputy in a small town where nearly nothing happens. In the summer, there was a case of children disappearing on a hiking trail. Thankfully, they were recovered safe and sound. While on that case, I learned there are things that go bump in the night. I survived one encounter with something supernatural and wondered if I would ever come across something like that again. My co-worker, Miranda, lived in a bigger city close by. She was the only criminal pathologist in the area. Because we hadn't had many suspicious deaths, I only had a vague idea of her job title. I assumed she was the one who did autopsies for the police. I saw her on occasion, but we became good friends in the few interactions we did have. I wasn't surprised to get a phone call from her the day before Halloween, even though we only known each other for a few months. I was a little surprised that she called to beg me to take her nephew and his 2 friends out trick-or-treating for her. Because of the missing children case, in the summer, their parents only agreed to let them go out if there was an adult supervising them. Miranda wanted them to still be able to have a fun Halloween. She was working, and I was the only option because of the parents' busy work schedule. I agreed, and found myself driving into the next city over and getting 4 kids dropped off. I really appreciate you doing this, Miranda told me while she was handing me the kids' trick-or-treating bags from her car. The night before, we went over the route and the plan for the night. She even printed me out a map to follow, because I didn't live in the city. I drove over to browse the shops on the main street fairly often because my small town didn't have the same selection. I knew the downtown areas well enough, but not the suburbs. She then started to introduce the kids to me, as if I didn't already know their names. She was nervous. Not about trust in me, but rather what kind of trouble the kids may try and put me through. This is Sam, my nephew, his friend Kim, and his little brother Jerry, but everyone calls him Jer Bear. Oh, and who is this one we picked up today? Sam was around 13 and the oldest of the bunch. He was dressed as a skeleton with a bodysuit and face paint. His friend Kim was slightly shorter and dressed as a vampire. I was a little surprised they had some pretty plain and classic costumes instead of a superhero or some character from a show. They explained to me they had a costume theme every year, and this year there's a classic theme. Oh, this is Ali. She's cool. We made friends with her at the fair today, Sam explained, introducing his friend. Ali said nothing. I couldn't even tell if she could see with that oversized pumpkin on her head. She's shy. But yeah, really cool. She won us all toys at the fair today. She's awesome at those games, Kim added in. The pumpkin head nodded, acknowledging their statements. I was aware of a Halloween-themed fair held during the day near a cornfield and pumpkin patch. Due to it being family-orientated, I never went before. I was glad the kids had fun today and picked up a friend. Having one extra child to watch over wasn't a big deal. It was barely any extra work. I would just need to get her address so I could drop her off at home at the end of the night. Everything was so close together in the city we wouldn't need my car to bring the kids back at the end of the night. I hope you don't mind another one. I didn't have the heart to leave her behind, Miranda admitted. No problem. I can handle 4 of them. You should be getting to work. We'll hit up the shops on the main street before doing the houses, I said with a nod. Miranda smiled at me, glad that I could help out. She checked her phone and groaned at the time. Judging from that reaction, she was late for work. Thanks again, Hugh. Now kids, please be good and don't wander off. You all have my number, and Sam has a phone for emergency calls only. Watch for traffic and all that. I really need to go, but send me a message when you get home, alright? All the kids chimed off that they understood. Miranda still looked a little worried, but she needed to get going. Given a few more goodbyes, she was in her car and drove off to work. I don't know if Sam knew what his aunt did as a job. I'm sure he would think it was a cool and not be scared by it. "Jer Bear, I'm going to hold your hand for a bit, alright?" I asked him and offered the boy my hand. He took it with a small nod of his cardboard head. He was a slow walker, so I kept pace with him, trying to shuffle around in his costume while Sam and Kim took off a few feet in front of us. Ali stayed next to me. I watched as the two older boys went up to shop fronts to collect candy, and I carried Jerry over to make sure he got his trick-or-treating done while keeping up with the other two. Strangely enough, Ali wasn't collecting candy. The jack-o'-lantern would silently look at us as she hung back, and me and Jerry walked up to the storefronts for candy together. Even if she was that shy, it would be a shame that she wasn't having fun that night. Keeping an eye on Sam and Kim, I went over to her. "Do you want us to slow down so you can trick-or-treat too? Did you bring a bag? If not, we can buy one really quick." She raised a small hand and gave me a wave as answer. She wasn't interested in trick-or-treating or speaking. I thought the only reason why a child wouldn't get free candy is because of strict parents, or they really couldn't have sugar. I wasn't going to force her. I just hoped she was having fun watching. Sam and Kim were getting too rowdy and far away from us. I started to hurry along while getting permission to pick up Jerry again. I didn't want to surprise him by picking him up without any warning. His costume was homemade, so we both needed to be careful while I lifted him up not to do any damage. I offered Ali my hand, with Jerry in one arm. She gladly took it, and we were off trying to catch up to the other boys. The main street was filled with little ghouls and goblins. I almost lost track of mine. They both stopped and chatted with some friends, long enough for me to find them again in the crowd. Being a full-grown adult in a swarm of children helped if you were looking for a certain set. "Is this your uncle?" one of the new kids asked when I walked over. I felt my face flush a little. I was already getting teased at work by just having Miranda's number. I didn't know how to react getting the same thing from the little ones. "Nah, he's a cool dude though. My auntie's friend." Sam explained, and the other group of kids got it right away. I was glad that he considered me cool, but did kids nowadays still say cool dudes? I was way out of touch on the lingo. I was starting to think that they just said whatever came to mind. "Oh, we haven't said hi to Jerry yet," one of the new boys from the group chimed in. They all turned and looked over to me, still carrying Jerry. All of them at once gave a big "Hi, Jerry," as if this was a routine they always did. Jerry gave a shy hello back from under his cardboard box. These kids were all right. "What do you think is the scariest thing, Mr. Hue?" one of the new girls asked as I followed behind them. "Taxes," I answered honestly, and they all groaned. It was nice to be included for a few seconds. They all started to chatter about scary movie monsters and online rumours. I only caught a few words because of how fast they spoke. They all agreed zombies were lame and not scary, but spiders were in fact very frightening. They walked together, and I found a few of their parents followed along with us. They spoke to each other but not with me, because none of them knew who I was. After all, I did not have a child of my own, so they would have no reason to have ever met me. We nearly came up to the end of the main street, and to where everyone would need to go on their own routes for the night. I spotted a girl in the crowd I recognized. It was one of the children who went missing a few months ago. She was dressed as a little witch, and her parents were close next to her. At least they let her go out tonight. I didn't approach them so they could keep having a normal Halloween. I may have been the one to bring the kids out of the woods, but I was not the one who saved them. What happened was supernatural in nature, and that meant I could never tell anyone the truth. The real hero would never be known about. Almost every other day, I wondered about that kid and how he was doing. Before the group broke away, and we all went in different directions, a mother noticed Jerry's costume was falling apart a bit. She gave me some tape to fix it if it got any worse. I thanked her. He worked so hard making it. It would be a shame if it didn't last the night. All the kids waved to each other and promised to meet at certain houses for the rumoured full-sized chocolate bars. Did you guys all decide on the scariest monster? I asked Kim and Sam when we started down our pre-planned route. Yeah. It's a tie between two new rumours this year. One is a headless corpse that lives in the woods and cuts off your head. The other is Mr. Top Hat Man. The top hat is the most normal part of him, so that's why he's called that. There is some blurry video out there no one can debunk, so that's why he's so scary. I nodded and listened to them. Proof of a monster, no matter how shaky, could make a rumour extra scary. Both boys got distracted by the line of houses we arrived at. They once again ran off, leaving me to carry Jerry. Not that I minded. For the next while, I kept reeling them back in and checking up on Ali. She didn't say anything, but I still wanted to double check. Near the end of the trip, Sam was looking tired. Only a handful of houses on a small street remained. The kids enjoyed themselves, their bags looking heavy from their spoils. Because I carried Jerry around a lot, he looked as if he could keep on going. I expected him to be the first one to throw in the towel. Just as we were about to move on, I told them to hold on for a moment. The cardboard of the robot costume was finally about to tear off Jerry's arm. Hey kids, let me fix this and we can finish up, okay? I put Jerry in front of me and got down on my knees to start repairing the damage. Does the tape look stupid? Jerry asked me in a small voice. No, it looks like a battle wound. I reassured him with a smile. Thanks for being cool, Mr. Hue. Yeah, these kids were all right. I've never met such a polite bunch of them before. Not that I was around children very often. I would gladly watch them or be a sitter if it was needed. As I worked away, trying to get the tape on the costume and not on myself, I didn't notice the lack of sound around us. I heard Sam and Kim talking, but I didn't hear any other trick-or-treaters. When I stood up, looking over my quick repair job, I started to notice how empty the street looked. How late is it, Mr. Hue? Sam asked, noticing the same thing I was. Not only was the street empty, but there were no lights on in the surrounding houses. The jack-o'-lantern still flickering away along with any lights on decorations, but not a porch light in sight. Normally people blow out the candles and turn off the decorations before turning off the lights for the night. Somewhere, I heard some cackling of an animatronic ghoul. We already saw 3 of the same model, so it was very popular that year. The kids started to look a bit scared, and none of them really knew why. I also felt a slight chill down my spine from the sudden empty streets. Hey, kids. What were you saying before about scary rumour? I asked, looking around for any signs of life besides us. The headless corpse, Kim asked, hopeful. Clearly not the corpse Kim. The Mr. Top Hat Man rule is that if you find yourself to be the last trick or treater on the street, you might come across him. Sam's little voice was wavering as he spoke. Can you elaborate on that? What are all the details of how this works? I asked, thinking maybe we were all overreacting. First, all the lights will go out. You won't find any help at the houses. Then a fog will roll in. On cue, a fog started to creep along the road on the other end of the street. Kim looked like she might faint. Sam stood in front of the ever-silent alley, as if to protect her, and I picked up Jerry in case we needed to run and his short legs couldn't keep up. Any normal and rational adult would have dismissed this. The lights were out, and there was some fog, so what? If I didn't see a creature a few months ago, I would not believe on any of this supernatural nonsense. But I did, and I was scared to death, for the kids I promised to look after. Then what? I encouraged them to keep telling us what was going to happen. You'll hear a cackling laughter. When Kim finished speaking, a laugh came from down the street coming from the fog. He let out a small scream, and I felt him clung to my leg. Can't we just make a run for it? I asked, as Sam took my other leg. No. That makes it worse. Both boys looked pale. Their small bodies shaking, and neither could tell me what happens if you try and run from what was approaching us. Ali wasn't shaking, but with her face still covered, I didn't have any idea of how she was taking it all. Poor little Jerry was sniffling under his cardboard box. I needed to think of a plan to get these kids out safe. First, I needed to know what I was dealing with. And what I was dealing with wasn't a pretty sight. From the fog came two glowing lights about eye level. A long, thin hand came from the fog. Then another. As the thing started to come out of the mist, I started to doubt we would get out of this alive. When I got a good look at the monster, it took everything I had not to start shaking as well. It was wearing a long crooked top hat that looked as if it'd seen better days. Long greasy black hair tumbled from under the hat, the hair all tangled together, the strands looking like spider legs sticking out at every angle. Glowing orange eyes locked on us, a slit of a mouth running up through its face from forehead to chin. It was hunched over on all fours. The limbs so long and lanky it only needed to take 3 steps to stop in front of us. Just 3 impossible strides, and it was sat like a frog looking down on our group. Its chest an open rib cage, with a glowing orange light inside the twisted and broken bones. All the kids were speechless. The thing reached out a thin hand covered in rags of a glove. In the other hand was a burlap sack that squirmed as if it had countless rodents inside trying to get free. When it reached out a hand, it spoke in a low, rasping voice, similar to paper tearing. Trick. Or treat. I froze, looking at this monstrous thing. I gripped Jerry tightly as he gasped and silently sobbed. The monster looked down at us expecting something, so I looked down at the boys hoping for answers. What do we do? I asked in a very low whisper, hoping that didn't upset the creature. You need to say it back. No, finish the rhyme. The smell my feet one. I stared at Sam in disbelief. That was it? We just needed to say that whole line and we would be spared? And exchange candy after? Are you trying to get us killed? Kim hissed angrily over how Sam forgot the important next step. The creature curled, its fingers looking like it was running out of patience with us. I was glad it waited for as long as it did. I never said the rhyme before, and I didn't know if being an adult who wasn't trick-or-treating was included. But I nodded at the boys, ready to do what we needed to stay alive. All right, we'll all say it together, okay? Jer Bear, you too. With newfound determination in their eyes, they all lined up, ready to speak. The creature almost looked like it smiled at us when it spoke again. Trick or treat? It asked in that awful voice. We all took a deep breath and squared up to face it. I'm sure the boys were all scared, but they shouted with me. Trick or treat, smell my feet. Give me something good to eat. That was embarrassing, even with the risk of being killed, or worse. I couldn't stop my face from turning red. There was a long pause that made the air tense as the creature looked down at us. Finally, it let out a long laugh that chilled my bones. It opened the sack in the one hand. When it did, I heard faint screams and wet tearing sounds. It pulled out its hand a few seconds later, the sack falling silent when it closed. When it opened its hand, inside was small goodie bags, the black fabric transparent and glittered. Inside the bag looked to be filled with candy skulls that shone similar to pearls. I set Jerry down so he could start going through his bag and find something for the exchange. Sam was the bravest and walked up first. He placed a few of his well-earned, large chocolate bars in the creature's hand and took a bag. When he noticed Ali didn't have anything, he pulled a few small chip bags for her to go up for the exchange. Kim was about to go up when Jerry stopped him. "Don't give him those Tootsie Rolls. Those are old people candy. He'll eat you for sure." Kim reluctantly picked out some better candy for a sacrifice. Jerry gave me some suckers, so we walked up, holding hands to get our goodie bags. When all the bags were given out, the monster closed its hand and placed the candy inside the sack. "See you next year." I could have sworn the monster gave us a wink before it turned and went back into the fog from where it came. Once it was gone, the lights in the surrounding houses flickered back to life. I stood, looking over the terrified kids. They were scared, but still alive. "That was fucking nuts," Sam squeaked out. Kim gave a nervous laugh, and I did not scold Sam over his choice of words. He was right after all. None of them wanted to stay on the streets for any longer. Thankfully, they all lived pretty close by. Each of them nearly dragged their heavy pillowcases full of candy and looked dead tired from their ordeal. Kim and Jerry were dropped off first. We walked them right up to the front door and watched as they unlocked it. I was going to miss both of them. "Hang on, let me text Miranda you got home safe," I told them. "She's probably elbows deep in a dead guy and won't see it," Kim commented. So the kids did know what her job was. Still, I need to make sure she sees you got home fine. I snapped a quick photo of them at their door and sent it off. Both looked as if they weren't ready to leave yet, even after what they went through. Their parents would be home by now, so they wouldn't be alone. "Thanks, Hue, for believing us. Adults don't really listen," Kim said, looking a bit bashful. I smiled at him, knowing that was true. Adults tended to not think kids knew anything. These boys may have heard people telling them their whole lives they weren't right, or just dismissing them altogether. "Can you take us next year?" Jerry asked in his small voice. "I hope I can. Now get inside and tell your parents you had fun." With a few goodbyes, both the boys were finally home. Sam was a quick walk back to a main street. I carried his candy bag for him because he looked so tired. While he walked, he looked at the glittering black bag of candy skull clacking together. I doubted he would eat any of them, but they were pretty to look at. He lived in an apartment above a closed shop. I sent off another text saying he got home safe. He even opened a window and waved down at me when he got inside. I now only had the silent Ali to take back home. She never gave me an address or even her full name. I offered her my hand, and she took it. We walked a few blocks, some stores still open and lights on. Finally, I broke the silence. "Did you have fun tonight, Ellie?" The small figure froze at my question. The hand dropped from mine, and the jack-o'-lantern head turned slightly upwards towards me. Slowly, small hands came up to the plastic head and pulled it off. White wavy hair tumbled out from under it, sticking to the child's face due to how sweaty it must have been inside the pumpkin for the entire night. A pair of red eyes looked over into mine. "Was it that obvious?" Ellie asked, speaking for the first time that night. Ellie was a boy I'd met a few months back. Because of his gender-neutral features, it was easy for him to pass off as a girl. He was the real hero, who saved a few children that went missing when we first met. His job title was something very impressive, and I was under the impression he was very strong. "You're not wearing shoes," I pointed out. That was the first clue. The alley name was so similar to his own that it was a pretty big giveaway. He lifted a foot and wiggled some toes, debating on if he was angry or not that his cover was blown. I was glad he decided on not to be angry. He couldn't keep his real identity hidden. I thought someone like you would be busy on Halloween. Did you have the time to hang out with us? Me and the law of physics have an understanding. I can be in two places at once, but not in the same place at the same time, Ellie explained. I didn't fully get it, but as long as it worked for him. Did you want to dress up as something else? He didn't know what I was talking about for a few seconds, until he realised he had some cat whiskers and a nose from a face-painting booth still on his face. He rubbed at it, embarrassed, but only smudged the paint. I needed to think of something when I heard your name. It was a last-minute costume idea. You never should have come across me a second time. My understanding of Ellie's job title was he watched over monsters and made sure they weren't breaking any rules. As far as I could tell, the creature we came across that night was very fair and patient. So, I didn't know why Ellie was here checking up on it. Why are you here? I'm glad to see you, and all, but I don't think you were really needed. Ellie shuffled on his feet after my comment. He started to turn the plastic pumpkin head in his hands, thinking over his words. That creature is new. I made it last year and want to see how it was doing. You made it? Do you make all the monsters? I asked, slowly, not understanding anything about his world. No. I very rarely make creatures. This one was going to become real, and I wanted to control some aspects of it. Sometimes rumours can create facts. I sensed that happening and told my own version. I ensured it spread before something else did. Children do not understand consequences. They would have made an impossibly terrifying creature if left to their own devices. I knew what he was getting at. Instead of a creature with rules, they would feel the need to one-up the next person. Whatever monster a bunch of kids would make up on their own would become something impossible to survive. Ellie sensed that and created something kinder. Ellie went on, still spinning the empty pumpkin, but not meeting my eyes. Halloween has become somewhat dull. I felt as if there was a need to make something scary and yet fun. Children should be scared a little, and they should be able to enjoy it as well. I think those three did. He looked up at me with the smallest of smiles on his face, and I agreed with him. A small pain came to my chest when I realised that Ellie would never see his three friends again. People weren't really meant to see him. I was lucky I came across him a second time. I dearly wished he could enjoy himself, but his job prevented that. I looked up from him and noticed how empty the street was getting. We stopped in front of a cafe's a few minutes before closing. Stay here for a second. He looked a bit confused, but nodded. I ducked inside the cafe for a few minutes and bought the last few items I'd seen in the window. When I came back outside, I had my hands full and hidden behind my back. I got down to Ellie's level, hands still hidden. He clued into what was going on, and a small flush came across his face. You need to say it. With some hesitation, he held out his empty pumpkin. In a small voice, he answered back, Trick or treat. With a large smile plastered on my face, I placed 8 candy apples into his bucket. Ellie was also smiling. He looked down at his treats, and I was positive this was the first time he was able to go trick-or-treating. I swear if I knew how, I would have adopted that supernatural child right then and there. Can I bring you home? I asked, and he shook his head. There's a bus stop a few blocks down the road. You should stay away from the stop, though. The bus I'm taking does not like humans. I stood up and held out my hand again. He took it without a second thought. We walked a short distance in silence. When I could see the bus stop from across the street, I paused, and Ellie slipped his hand out of mine. Take care of yourself, all right? I told him, unsure of what else to tell him. He gave me a comfortable smile, looking as if me saying such a thing was a silly thought. He was stronger than any monster out there, but he was still a kid who got excited over candy apples. I stayed to watch him cross the empty road and sit in the lit stop. He sat on the bench, pumpkin in his lap. His feet swaying, he already picked up an apple and started to eat it before I forced myself to leave. He didn't need me around to watch him even though I wanted to. I've thought back to that night, and I know Ellie was right. Sometimes it's fun getting a little scared on Halloween. Hi everyone, thanks for listening. Tonight's story was written by Reddit user 02321. If you enjoyed the chaos, hit subscribe, like, and maybe join the membership so you can say I was here before she got weirdly famous. A massive shout out to my members. Or rather, member Mark Mathern 7322. If you really enjoyed it, I think I have that super thanks button down there somewhere. Even £1 helps me toward my goal of making this a full-time thing. Then I can just have one full-time thing instead of my day job and this full-time. I'm here a lot. Good night.